Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about Splatoon Raiders. Now, I am starting to get truly hyped for this game. The demos have been out there, previews have gone out there, we have multiple treehouse segments, we've had the dedicated Splatoon Raiders Direct, and from all of this stuff, including myself playing through the demo, how do I feel about this game now? And, well, the truth is, I feel pretty good about this game. I'm actually getting excited to play this one, and so that's what we're talking about today. Before continuing here, let me just point out I'm getting so close to my goal of 60,000 subscribers, so if you find yourself enjoying my videos and if you haven't subscribed already, I would appreciate your subscription. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I don't have that much footage from me playing the demo myself, but a little bit. Most of the footage here is going to be from the treehouse event. But the main thing I noticed when playing through Splatoon Raiders is just the movement options. I've noticed about this game in comparison to other Splatoon games, you have a lot more actions you can take to get yourself into the air, and you have kind of like this movement where you're kind of slowly descending. And this is a really cool new tactic they've added to the game, which gives us a lot more opportunity to strike down at various enemies, because with Splatoon Raiders, it is a game where you're going against larger hordes, a lot more enemies here, and when you are going to be surrounded by so much, finding these different opportunities to vault yourself high up into the air, look around slowly, get a better understanding of your environment, and just kind of shoot down enemies that are below you to create some space, it's a lot more meaningful there. But it actually goes a little bit beyond that as well, because this game is a little bit more exploration based, and so they've added a few more other movement options, such as like with these surfboards when you're traveling literally across water. And so there's just kind of some cool things here that are unique to Splatoon Raiders that you may not have seen from prior Splatoon games that I think a lot of people will notice and be like, huh, that's kind of cool, that is different. The movement options in this game are more varied, and I find that really interesting. Movement to me is a really important part to games. And the thing about Splatoon has already had some very interesting movement systems, because you do spray ink everywhere, and then you can swim in that, move around quickly on walls, through floors, and go through grates and such. And so there's a lot of different things you can do there that are cool, and now they're stacking upon that with these other things I've mentioned. But what's also fascinating about this game are also the different gadget options as well, and I played around with a few of those, like with the axe that actually like allows you to dash forward a little bit even in the air, and there's a little bit of a small combo there with that second attack. And so that feels really good to use. And the thing is about this game, the whole gameplay loop is about collecting treasure, different kinds of treasure that you can then take back to home base and use that to tinker with your different passive skills and abilities, and improving upon your gadgets and building new gadgets, creating different types of loadouts so you can then go back to these different raids and see what else you can do, creating more powerful sets to battle these larger, more intense hordes of enemies. And so now with all this new information, I now have a much better feel for the loop of this game, how it's going to feel, and the movement of it all, and that is getting me really, really interested in this one. But where things get even cooler though is just considering the multiplayer element. We saw the evidence early on that there was going to be at least a cooperative mode, and now we've seen actual official footage of that from the Nintendo Treehouse, and this makes the game seem a lot more interesting to me, because you do have so much different options in terms of creating your own loadout and customizing upon it and expanding upon it. You're going to be able to create a lot of very unique abilities between different characters, and so this is going to allow for different teams to really diversify themselves and come up with different strategies that work for them. So I see a lot of depth here, and to me this is all the more interesting because what I prefer the most from Splatoon, it's not the single player campaigns, it's not the Splatfest or typical multiplayer, but it's actually the salmon run, fighting against these larger hordes of enemies. And that is what Splatoon Raiders is about. It is, yes, an adventure in a sense, but you're going through these different areas fighting these large hordes of enemies. And something else I found really interesting that we've learned about is that there are varying difficulties with these salmonids, with these hordes we're going to see. They can get more intense, very intense, and to me, that's really cool. Splatoon Raiders, from what we've come to understand, has a lot of very roguelike options, but it's essentially an expansion of Salmon Run, portrayed in a more single-player campaign kind of way, but with cooperative play as well, and better movement options. And all that together for me sounds like a really nice package. And just considering how there are these varying levels of difficulty and how we're going to be able to revisit these levels and continually collect more treasure, unlocking more items and abilities and such, I feel like this is going to be kind of like a meaty package, which then has me sort of wondering about just like the price of this game, because this is being priced as a budget title. Digitally it's $50 USD, but in retail it's $60 USD, just like Star Fox. But I'm not getting the sense that this is a small game, so I definitely kind of wonder, what is Nintendo thinking here in terms of their pricing structure? Like, just how meaty is this game in comparison to, say, something like Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, where Nintendo's pricing it at $80? And that's something I'm just not sure about, because you think about, for example, Mario Kart World, that was the first $80 game from Nintendo. And while I think there's certainly a lot to enjoy with that game, I think most will agree it doesn't feel like that extra $10 is justified. It feels like a $70 game, but Nintendo priced it at $80. And so you think they did that because of the brand power of Mario Kart. But then you look at Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, which is a much smaller, more niche Nintendo IP, less popular than Splatoon, that's at $80. And so then we look at Splatoon Raiders, which is a more popular Nintendo IP than Fire Emblem, and yet they're pushing it at $60 retail, $20 cheaper. Now, it is a spin-off, though. It's not a main Splatoon game, and maybe that plays a role here. And perhaps if you simply compare Splatoon Raiders to other Splatoon games, maybe then from that perspective it does not seem as meaty. Because Splatoon, it's not just about the multiplayer, but it's also the single-player campaign and the salmon run. There's 3 different modes here, not to mention with the main Splatoon games, they are continually iterating upon them for years, where they're continually adding new content, events, every few weeks, and so on. With Splatoon Raiders, we assume what we're getting day one is the entire package, and there won't be continued updates afterwards. It's not going to have the same kind of legs as the other Splatoon games, but Splatoon Raiders is not a multiplayer-focused game. It's a single-player-focused game with a very fun cooperative play throughout all the missions. Either way, though, myself, just thinking about the package here, I really see myself that's going to really get into Splatoon Raiders, especially if I have someone to play with, and I can find myself aiming for that 100%, getting every single gadget, collecting all the treasure, and maxing out on the difficulty. For me, that's going to be a good time, and I think I'm going to really get my bang for the buck here. And so I find myself very hyped and interested in this game. But then I also wonder what other people are thinking. Because this is a spin-off title, this is not your typical Splatoon game. Is this going to turn off your typical Splatoon player that cares more about the multiplayer? You see, I'm very interested in this because I love Salmon Run. But am I in a minority here? And is there a potential for Splatoon Raiders to appeal to a different audience that isn't necessarily into all the multiplayer stuff from the other Splatoon games, that is more interested in playing a single-player campaign or something with cooperative play? And maybe that also is playing a role here with that budget price, because Nintendo is doing something different with Splatoon here. They want to see how that's going to go. But what do you all think? What do you make of Splatoon Raiders? Are you getting hyped like me? Is there something else you notice about this game that's really drawing you in? Let me know. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.